This is the podcast that flips the health and wellness industry upside down so you can be your healthiest inside and out. I'm your host, Dr. Neal Smoller, holistic pharmacist and supplement strategist. I'm joined by Mr. Mark DeCicco, founder of RTD Fitness. Good to see you, Mark.
Good to see you, Neal. We're back in action.
We are. Have you been meditating since we saw Dr. Dresdale?
A lot of meditation, a lot of mindfulness. That episode just blew away any other mental health. And he didn't know the stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And he still stuck to the code.
He did.
We're here to help. And
yeah.
he had that same mindset, which was awesome.
And he said thank you. And he appreciated what we were doing for all 12 of our listeners.
Listen,
so that was really great.
All of them are invested in this. People are messaging us nonstop, Neal, about how much fun they're having with the podcast. I hope you are. I'm less grumpy. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, I had somebody write in, actually, Mark, Eric Shapley, one of my patients from Connecticut, actually, wanted to say thank you. The podcast is great, so that was great.
Cool.
But he also said, quote, what the hell is Neal looking at?
Yes.
Like, I'm always looking off.
And the thing is Neal's running off a script. So Neal has to have an agenda and a script.
Yeah.
I am jazz freeform. Ba-da-boo-ba-boo-bow.
Yeah.
I don't use any of those fancy words that are written down, or I don't plan any of the things I'm going to say.
Yeah, and that was actually the second thing he said.
Well,
he's like, maybe Mark should be looking at something.
Well, that's interesting. You can't just make this magic go onto a piece of paper. You can't do it. It's not quantifiable. This is its own thing, man. You got to let it ride.
I'm with you, Mark.
We're already in rare form. This is bad start to this thing.
I've had a crap day. I got to be honest with you. So I took an L today from a vaccine clinic standpoint.
Wow.
Since I've done the Captain COVID stuff, I think we've done hundreds now of like remote clinics all over 2 counties, like 6 counties actually, Saratoga down to the Bronx and all around. And I went over to Dutchess County today and I saved the day. There was a Moderna shortage and I got noticed late last night that there was doses coming. They didn't make it. So then I drove to the UPS distribution center and I grabbed the doses and I realized it wasn't the 100 doses that I was allocated, it was 600. So then I couldn't just go directly to the clinic. So I had to run back to the store. And when I ran back to the store, I left the Pfizer doses there. So then I drive an hour to the thing and I get there and I'm a little bit late because the Rip Van Winkle Bridge is just a hot mess.
Sure.
And 30 people are staring at me and I don't have any Pfizer doses for them. And so literally in the pandemic, all those hundreds of things, I've only had 2 L's that I've taken, two big losses. The first one was during Mother's Day, 2021. I literally thought that I had no vaccine clinics booked and we're about to go do something. Ava remembers this, right? Because Ava's back in studio
She's
with
still
us.
here.
And so we're like ready to go to brunch and then all of a sudden I get a text message, hey, are you still coming in 20 minutes to this thing that's an hour and 20 minutes away?
Wow.
And so I was like, yeah, I am. I didn't shower. And like literally I was mixing the vaccine as I was driving to make sure that I had the dose ready to give to 100 people that were expecting me to be there an hour ago.
So you're like the Walter White cooking up the meth in your car.
As I was going.
As you're going, like you're in your RV cooking up the meth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty wild.
Were you able to get the tiny microchips into the syringes? Because I know that's a huge part of your COVID protocols is making sure that the microchips are fresh, new, and that they can really track your body everywhere you go.
Well, they're organic.
They're
free
locally
range,
sourced,
free range microchips.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. The other thing, since we're talking about COVID right now, is a lot of folks are complaining because their cards are full. They're coming in for their fall boosters with the bivalents.
Right. You've had like 70, right?
Yeah, because they're senior citizens, so they've gotten 3 boosters basically. Some people had a third primary series, right? So I said, it's funny, like since this is a pandemic that we're profiting off of, and clearly these drug companies are just in it to make lots of money and give us doses for the rest of our lives.
Correct.
You'd think they would have thought the cards out a little bit better.
You would think. And the problem I have is because I'm an overachiever, I went and got my card laminated after the first set of doses, and you can imagine having multiple doses is a terrible plan with a laminated card. I'm like scribbling on it. That's not legal. Like that's against the law.
I will literally flip a table right now, Mark. Do you understand that the controversy that was the laminated stuff?
I got it laminated. Dude, I felt so good about my lamination. I was so proud of myself.
The seniors would come in for their second dose.
I was so happy.
This was like 20,000 people.
Sure.
We were like, should we get the card laminated? I heard we
Staples
can go
did
to
it for
Staples
free. I went it for free. I got it for free. It didn't even cost me money.
It was right across the street.
It was
so everybody
free.
was talking about it.
It was great.
It was god awful. I'm like, I don't care. Just leave this building.
And now I have 2 cards because I got my card that's laminated, which is for like my original set, and that one,
card.
Yeah, that one I frame, and then I got my booster card.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff. And I have my Excelsior pass in case I want to go anywhere in New York State or elsewhere. I have the digital version of it everywhere.
So we're at a vaccine clinic. We have to give proof of vaccination. So can I have your card? And they give you their stupid phone with the Excelsior pass.
That's what I got.
And I just put a sticker right on their screen. I'm like, yep, there you go.
That's
Boom.
not
and
how
I
that works,
yep.
Neal. That's not how science works. You got to trust the science here, Neal.
Not a single practitioner has a thing that can read an Excelsior pass. I just want you to know that.
So,
the little QR
so it's going
code?
great. So it's going great. The rollout's been good.
Yeah.
Everything's been good. People are positive about COVID right now. I feel like no one's ready to be done with it, and everyone's got the right mindset when it comes to COVID. So
awesome.
It's been great. It's been such a cool experience seeing how Americans handle like a major pandemic, because I feel like our ability to be selfless in this country is like second to everyone, because we're just so bad at it.
Awful.
We're terrible at it.
It is terrible. I'm happy that we're at the end of the road. For
yeah,
sure,
thank goodness.
Okay, so today's episode is multivitamins.
Ooh, sexy.
Both useless and vital. How's that for clickbait, right?
Well, I'm already excited. I don't even know where this is headed because, again, I don't use notes, but this is exciting. It's fine.
I just lost it.
It's
sorry.
fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah,
we're doing great.
So this is just,
Ava, keep us on track. You're in charge here.
Oh my God, this is an extra special episode. Another multi-parter. And because, here's the thing, Mark.
Yeah.
We talk a lot. I try to jam too much information into one thing. Like,
people were saying there's so much content. All you do is read off a screen with the content, and people are losing their mind. They're like, Neal just has so much content, and you're hilarious, and you're so funny, but Neal is so serious all the time. And I'm like, Neal is hilarious. You guys don't realize he's funny, but he's got to get his content in. He's the pharmacy guy. He's a supplement guy.
I got to make this legitimate.
He has to. Otherwise, just me rambling and
farting. Ava is so tired of this whole thing.
She is.
No, it's totally fine. I was just playing with a Band-Aid and like
gross.
So anyway, I don't know why we have a Band-Aid here. Probably because we're giving flu shots, I guess.
Gross.
But so the idea here is like, let's make this not wellness sprint or like wellness do suicides until we throw up. We're going to make this a nice leisurely walk type podcast, right? So if we're going to talk about multivitamins, we have a lot to say. So let's kind of spread it out, and we'll spread it out over a couple weeks too. So that way it's not all in your face about multivitamins. So we're going to do 2, maybe 3 parts to this thing because there's a lot to say about multivitamins. Today, the goal is to introduce one of the Vital 5, the multivitamins, and then tear down some of those supplement knowledge scaffoldings as it pertains to these things. A lot of structures are built around what we believe about multivitamins, and we got to kind of rip those bad boys to the ground. So today we're going to talk about why they're simultaneously useless and vital at the same time. And then in the second version of this podcast, we're going to talk about some common problems, multiple vitamins, which is something that we've talked about before.
Yep.
We've talked about the 1-a-day piece, but I want to really expand upon that and kind of give you the history of multivitamins. And then I want to talk about targeted multivitamins, because as you saw on my social media feed, I said, hey, who wants to ask a question about multivitamins, and almost everybody said, what does a 50-year-old take? What does a senior take? What does a teen take? What does a kid take?
And then Lindsay said, make a recommendation.
She just said, pick one.
Pick one, Neal. Stop talking in circles and just give me one thing I can do. Just give me a thing, Neal, for goodness sakes.
I'm actually going to get to that because I think this podcast is going to be both useless and vital, because I'm not going to give a recommendation at the end.
Well, Lindsay's going to stop listening now. She's done. She's like, I'm not going to stick around for the rest of this. Why would I?
I'd like to give a shout out to Socrates while we're at it, right? Senora Dvorak says hello.
Oh, Senora, ¿cómo está?
I've got this new bit too. Like anytime anybody mentions you or the podcast, I'm like, I act like a 30-year-old vet of the film industry, and we've been partners since
we're Starsky and Hutch, baby. I mean, we are partners in this thing.
He's a talentless hack. He's a fraud.
He's the worst. I'm the one running this podcast. He'd be nothing without me. You see? Yeah. It's old-timey accents now.
Yeah.
For some reason.
They're like, no. And I'm like, clearly I'm joking. Clearly.
Yes. This has been exciting for both of us. I think the thing that we when we started this whole thing, we didn't know where it was going to go, and we have really cared about doing this the right way. And I think that's the part that I'm excited about jokes aside, which we're going to make more jokes because it's multivitamins and we have to make this more fun.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of the product we've put out so far. I feel like when people reach out, they're like, you guys are saying stuff that's helpful for me. And they have follow-up questions, which is great because we're not giving you the full deal, right? People have said like, well, you talked about how you eat, but you didn't really get into it. I know.
We got a lot of time, baby.
I know.
What are we going to do for 50 more episodes?
We have a zillion episodes to go. So you're not going to get all of that. So when Lindsay says things like, hey, pick a multivitamin, Neal.
Nope.
No.
That's episode 17.
That's episode 900. Like, you guys got to stick around. So if you like what we're doing here, teaser, stick around because we're going to do more stuff. But all of this is about us trying to give you the very best information we can. Having Dresdale here last week was so cool.
Yeah.
Because he's a mental health ninja. He's just he's in it the right way for the right reasons, and he cares about the people he works with, and he wants to give good information to people, and that's what we're trying to do. So when he comes in and drops knowledge on you the way he did, that for me is like
calmly and serenely
in like the calmest way. I just totally brought the whole thing just super chill.
Yeah,
and like. That's the kind of people we want to have here. So if you're one of those people, reach out, and we're going to, not have you on the podcast, but we're really proud of the work we're doing here, and I hope you folks are enjoying it.
So the last multivitamin episode that we're going to do is the one that's my favorite because it's the one that blows people's minds, the multivitamin mind blower to blow all minds. It's where we talk about my main thesis about multivitamins, which is they're misrepresented. Multivitamins misrepresented. I get into how fraudulent whole food and food-based multivitamins are. And, there's meth, there's oranges, there's yeast. It's so exciting. So I can't wait to get to that episode. So keep listening to the multivitamin babies.
Can't wait for the yeast discussion. That's going to be excellent.
Visit wellnessupsidedown.com for all things podcast related. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app and even over on YouTube. And give us that 5-star review as often as you can each and every episode because it helps us get seen and heard. And I know we're worth it. So the pre-show affirmation, we're going to just check in. We're going to make sure that you guys know where we're at, why are we here, what are we trying to do. We want you to live your healthiest life. We're fans of supplements done right. We just don't want you to get lost in the chaos the health and the wellness industries intentionally create. We're here to help make sure you don't waste your time, money, or energy on the false promises from these billion-dollar industries. We're here to help on a new, better path to feel your best. So if you hear me ranting about multivitamins, if we say that something doesn't work, if we're criticizing anything, we're not picking on you because you tried it. We're beating up on the system, the misinformation, the hype that gets folks with good intentions to those places. We're raging against the machine and not you. So today's show, multivitamins, both useless and vital, I want to talk about our cultural connection to multivitamins, the multivitamin zeitgeist.
Ooh,
another
that's a nice big word.
It's a nice word. Another Reddit thread. But this time a good one. It wasn't a bad one.
Okay.
And then what we mean when we say a supplement works or doesn't, and why multivitamins don't work, but why they're still vital. And
I am fascinated because I don't know where this is headed, and I feel like you're saying two different things out of the side of your face, and I don't believe any of it. So the thing that I took away from the internet the other day was that there was a supplement guy on a thing, and he said that supplements have to happen because our American diet.
Oh my God, I want to throw up now. I know what you're going to say.
So depleted from its actual nutrition. So the soil that we grow our food in has so much less nutrition and nutrients in it than it did a century ago. And so because we have all of these farms and all of these issues, now this is a guy who's just on the internet, so I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, but what he was saying was you can't get the level of nutrition that your grandparents could because the soil is garbage. And so it's much less full of nutrition than it would have been even a century ago. And so not that that's a reason to go out and buy random supplements because we have a whole supplement strategy. We did a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm not taking away any of the base of the pyramid. I've been preaching about the base of the pyramid because that's where I live. I'm on the base of the pyramid. I don't understand all the stuff above that. What I understand is the lifestyle elements. That's where I'm at, and that's where I come from for this whole thing. But What do you say, Neal, to folks who talk about supplements that way? Is that a true statement?
So it's more about how they talk about the food,
Yeah.
and so that is definitely something that gets around, right? So that's something that people talk about a lot, about how everything is horrible these days, and therefore you're not getting the same nutrition. And I'm pretty sure there's no mechanism for us to take an apple from 1950 and then compare it against the phytonutrients from today.
It would probably be dead.
It would be hard.
Yep.
At least So it would be really hard to kind of affirm
quantify that.
Exactly that claim. But what I will say, the thing that we talked about with Europe and what we talked about with the American diet is that our food certainly isn't fresh and it's definitely hyper processed.
Yep.
And if we were keeping it real, it doesn't matter even if the soil is garbage because people don't eat fruits and vegetables anyway.
Well, that's just it. And so if you're only eating Doritos, then it doesn't matter that the ground
vegan.
is not very good, right?
Yeah.
The ground doesn't have to be better at its soilness if you're just eating,
Cool Ranch.
Cool Ranch. Which, listen, shout out to Cool Ranch Doritos, delicious, but not a form of nutrition.
For sure. And so, so I definitely, and again, when I talk about supplements, I say that we can supplement healthy choices, but supplements are not nutrition. And, that's another topic
we've
for
spent
today.
some time on it, but that's so multivitamins. I have lots of thoughts about multivitamins, and of course that's a good thing to have since we're doing this podcast about multivitamins. But
I'm glad you thought about it.
But I spent a lot of time on. I wrote a bunch of stuff down, and I have it right in front of me here on this piece of paper. And so my script says, my daughter takes a couple multivitamins.
Flintstones, baby.
And so it's a chewables, the Goalies. Okay,
Yeah,
so the ones you get at Walmart.
Yeah.
I don't go special. I don't think about targeting. I just grab the ones off the shelf that look good, and they're purple and they got sugar around them. So I get those ones because I know she'll eat them. And then me, I'm a whole other can of worms.
Yeah,
so we won't get into me yet. We're not going to get into me yet. But
I do want to get into you
daughter.
for just 1 second. Let's talk about this because we're going to talk a lot about why multivitamins are important and why they're not and what they do and what they don't do. And that's the general health advice for most people. But there are people with pathologies that have digestive issues, that have the potential to not absorb certain nutrients.
That's me.
And that would be Mark. It's got 2 thumbs and RTD fitness shirt. This guy right there.
This guy.
And so, people that have certain gastrointestinal diseases, even some severe immunocompromised status patients. Heck, if you're in a hospital and you have to get total parenteral nutrition, they're putting multivitamins into your bag.
Yep.
And so there are times where these micronutrients are important to get from a multivitamin standpoint. But I'm talking today about the multivitamins that we all take with the perception that we're going to take it to be healthier people.
And without the pathology. So I'm prescribed by my doctors who gave me the surgery. 4 times a day, I take high levels of micronutrients. And there's some, very specific items in it. And we've talked here about how I tried to get Neal to make me a multivitamin. He was like, I'm not even touching it.
Nope.
Because it's so complicated. And I don't understand it.
It's not complicated. It's just like
it's just a mess. There's so much going on. Because my body can't absorb the same way that it would have, I have to take these. And I notice a difference if I don't. And so maybe it's placebo. I don't know. But I know that I take it 4 times a day. I was told that was what I was supposed to do by a doctor, so I do it.
Yeah.
I know people who've gone distance away from the surgery who don't order the vitamins. I have them on auto update from Amazon because I need them to come to the house because I take 4 of them a day. So it's constant. For folks who don't have to do that, that's awesome. And I don't want folks to think that that's a reasonable amount of vitamins to take. So I'm not endorsing you take four multivitamins a day.
Yeah.
And Neal certainly I don't think would support that either.
No.
But I'm a special guy. I have a special pathology that
Very
requires
special.
me to have these extra nutrients because of what happened with my stomach. In the surgery, I can't absorb the nutrients the same way you could with a sort of normal pathology.
Yeah, and this is the point. Culturally, we have this really interesting relationship with multivitamins, right? We reach for them first.
Yes.
Like when we're ready to do something healthy, the multivitamins where we go. I'm worn down. I want to be healthier. I'm starting a new plan. I need a multivitamin. And listen, all cards on the table. As a business guy, we freaking love multivitamins.
Happy
Are
to
you
sell them
kidding
to
me?
you.
Everybody wants them. Every single person wants them. Omega-3 has all that data. It's the one supplement that I think everybody really, really needs, right? It's hard sell, right? Because it's a lot of pills, and meanwhile they'll take 4 multivitamins.
I'll take
right?
70 multivitamins, but don't give me some random omega-3. A pass on
And
that.
despite the health impact, it's a hard sell.
Yep.
But I even mention a multivitamin, people instantly, yep, I absolutely need that without even hesitating because it confirms a notion that's been built by decades of marketing. And here's the first trivia question.
Okay.
How many years do you think that we've been obsessed with multivitamins?
When did Flintstone chewables happen? That's what it's got to be 80s. Is it? Were you talking
1980s?
The 80s? Yeah, maybe earlier. I'm thinking when Flintstones came out with the chewables, right? That's got to be a timestamp for this, right?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think so. I think that you're very right. But multivitamins were kind of discovered in the 20s.
Oh wow!
And the promotion of them started. So it's about 100 years, but the real marketing force has been since the 40s.
Okay.
And so we've got about 80 years.
Wow.
Of marketing
that we have to undo.
And that's why there's a
They also said that you should smoke cigarettes back then for health reasons. So if we're doing the same stuff 100 years ago, I think we're in trouble, Ava. What are we going to do?
Yeah, that kind of goes
back. It's the vaping with the kids. That's what it is. That's what it is.
It goes back to the COVID thing just real quick. Yeah. People are like, I want the older technology. And I'm like, you say that about nothing else.
Right. That's the only thing that you would say it about. Like you wouldn't say that about like
cigarettes.
I want old doctor advice. Like I wanted advice from a doctor from 100 years ago. Do you?
You want leeches?
You want leeches? Yeah, have you been watching House of the Dragon? Because that's not the kind of care I want. I don't want Meister care. It's terrible.
But the marketing for decades is why there's 7 bajillion of these products. It's a huge opportunity for us to make money. And so it's ingrained in us because it's sold to you on a constant basis, just reaffirming all of the things that we think we know about them. We connect wellness directly to multivitamins. And that's why also micronutrients are in everything. Everything has micronutrients because the business guys know that you're looking for them because you associate it with it being healthy. And so, from my perspective, the same reason that people are eager to use them is the same reason that I critique them. It's not your fault, of course, but the reason that you want to use them is the misrepresentation, how they're misrepresented in the world. When you think multivitamins, think misrepresentation. When you think of garbage, think of Hakeem. So when we think of multivitamins, it's that space food we've been talking about, right? So they're misrepresented as a substitute for good nutrition. They're misrepresented as an advantage, like an extra credit on your report card to bump up your wellness GPA. Or it's justification for slacking. I can eat McDonald's because I take my multivitamin, right?
I took my Flintstone chewable, so these 6 chicken nuggets I'm dipping in sweet and sour are going to be delicious, and my multivitamin, it's going to fight it. It's like why I drink Diet Coke. It's because if I drink the Diet Coke, I'm not getting any calories from that. So if I eat the Whopper, I'm fine. I mean, I'm not fine. I would lose, everything would fall out. We've talked about my dumping syndrome. But I'm fascinated by, and we've talked about this a little bit, the thinking behind my thinking, why I think the way that I think. And so we've really challenged folks throughout the podcast to think about why do you think that, right? And so we've used our own examples. We've used anecdotes, my Saw Palmetto stuff, Neal with his hair and just his overall.
It's gorgeous. I'm going for my 6-month review tomorrow.
It actually looks great. It makes me mad because it looks really good.
It does look good. It looks good, but it doesn't. I don't want to kind of.
It's.
Getting close. It looks weird. It kind of looks like Hellraiser. A little bit.
Don't get next to it, but like from a distance, it's fine. And if you haven't listened to the hair episode, like what's the matter with you?
What's
right?
the matter with you?
Insane.
But so so that's a good point because we're talking about the thinking behind the thinking. That's the purpose of today's episode. But also, I've been talking a lot about the health stuff, the wellness stuff, but I haven't really been talking about the supplement stuff outside of strategy and conceptual stuff. And so with multivitamins, we can really kind of get to the supplement expertise. The biggest misrepresentation is the products that we buy. We think that they're higher quality or more sophisticated than they actually are. Right? They're misrepresented, that they have a bigger impact on our lives. And, I'm going to give away the ending. Like the products are misrepresented for sure. And we don't need multivitamins, but micronutrients, the things that are in multivitamins, they're vital. They're essential. And like you need them. And that's why they're the vital 5. But again, we're going to kind of like talk about that. One of the things that I was thinking about, like, this probably on your bariatric surgery thing, I bet you there's pictures of fruit on the front of it, right?
Oh, I almost brought the bottle and I was mad that I didn't have it. There's like a it's a wild berry flavor. So there's like this wave and then there's like these berries, right? And so when you talked about the woman who came in and wanted the protein shake with the fruit with the Thanksgiving meal on it, it's like I know that these mixed berry, there's not one berry. No. There's not even half a berry. There's no berries.
No.
It tastes like...
There's never been a berry.
There's never even been a berry
all the way back.
There's no berries. And no matter how good the soil is, there's no berries. And so I know that going into it.
Yeah.
But again, this is very different, right? Because I kind of have to kind of take on a regular basis throughout my day.
But your point isn't to replace food, but it is interesting how they still use that connection.
Sure.
It's that aspirational stuff.
Absolutely.
That dog
the
food example, right? And so one of my favorite ads. So I do the supplement school. I teach healthcare professionals how to build a wellness practice, and I use this in the lesson. And it's my favorite picture. It is a literal like blender, like you would put beef into to grind, into and so it's a pile of fruit, like the healthiest fruit that you've never eaten in your life.
Not one time.
And then it's pouring out into this magic tablet. And then there's a scientist standing there and saying,
I'll buy 5 of those.
Yeah, and this is nutrition.
Give me all of it.
My absolute literal food being ground up, turned into this magic multivitamin. And it's disgusting because it's not even true. And like the example.
But what if it is, Neal? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this whole time they've been grinding up perfectly good fruit and making it into yummy multivitamins, and you're just a jerk. Have you thought about that? Have you considered that at all?
I haven't considered.
Okay, well.
And so our cultural connection to multivitamins is very unique for our place in the world, and it's a lot of misrepresentation. It's a bill of goods that's been sold to us, but it's still important because they contain micronutrients. And so let's kind of like dive into this Reddit thread that got me talking.
Before we get to the Reddit thread, so part of the cultural thing for me too, I think, is parents want their children to be healthy.
Yeah, we got to talk about your daughter. We just totally skipped over that.
We skipped over the fact that I go to Walmart and I buy these Goli vitamins. I know her diet is absolute trash. She eats like a maniac person. It's all buttered noodles and nonsense all day long. Yeah. If I can get her to get protein in her body, and I'm like protein machine. I'm like, you have to have protein at every meal. I'm like a maniac with the protein. And so I get her to eat protein on a sparse basis, but I know that she's getting it. From there, I'm like, you don't get any other nutrition. Like, you don't get nutrients from any other place. I force her to have like spinach because I'm like, that's a food, and you can dip it in a little bit of ranch dressing. Yeah. And I literally struggle with how to keep my kid healthy because she eats such awful foods. So in my head, I'm like, well, she took a multivitamin, so I guess she's doing better. And my wife and I feel really strongly about that, knowing full well that that's probably not the best scenario for her. And so I should get her to eat better. Like if I could do that, Neal, I would. So help me out, Neal. I can't get her to eat better, and I'm putting her on a multivitamin. Isn't that enough? What do you want from me, Neal? What do you want from me? Stop judging me.
He's getting handcuffed and taken out of here right now as we're talking.
Stop judging me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that.
But that's the motivation is what I'm getting to.
There's a lot there, and so you can apply that same logic to an adult.
Sure.
To say, listen, I don't eat a salad every day, which is a crime, and so maybe if I take my multivitamin, I'll be filling in the gaps. Right. That's the word we use. We're going to fill in the gaps, and so to kind of tease it a little bit, our nutrition. There's 10,000 phytonutrients, phytochemicals that have been identified. And there's probably a lot more because it's really hard to identify these things. The micronutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, and the trace minerals account for about 31 to maybe 40-ish, depending on how liberal of a read you want to take, of those phytonutrients. So it's a very, very small sampling, right? And so clearly there is something very different about a micronutrient from a multivitamin and the micronutrients that are found plentifully in the foods, right? You can eat a carrot, right? And then you could take the same amount of vitamin A and you could potentially overdose, like a bucket of carrots versus the same amount of vitamin A from supplements. And you could have a real problem from it because of, all of the complex chemical things that are going on. We're just going to keep it at that superficial level. But there's a big difference. And so the question for today then for you, Mark, is does a multivitamin equal that, or is it getting me close? And we will answer that, I promise. The Reddit thread. So basically another article comes out that is discussing a study that just was released, because that's how we deal with things. We don't read the studies. We just read the articles that talk about the things.
We don't even read the articles, Neal. We read the headline of the article.
Right.
No one's actually reading the article. I can promise you that. Yeah. It's a headline.
And again, it showed that there's no real benefits of taking multivitamins. And I say again, if you haven't heard that before, you're not listening to the right places. There's study after study, big ones, really well done studies that don't that say multivitamins don't work. We're going to go into detail about that.
How come I don't see those, Neal? They never pop up on my thread.
Isn't that weird?
Is it because maybe there's like a lot of money to be made off of them and every single person wants them and you get rich off of it? Could that be a factor?
I definitely think that there's some of that, but I also think that, my observation from years in the supplement game is that we gloss over bad news that goes against what we want to hear, and we like to listen to things that make us feel good. And that's actually the point of me bringing up the Reddit thread, because the discussion in it was actually good. Like, I want to beat up on Reddit, but I've found some nutritional posts that were really great. We're going to talk about soon. And like this, most people were saying the right things, ranging from like, oh, I stopped taking multivitamins after the last bad study that came out, to like, it's about finding the right product and taking the right doses. And they had a very nuanced, sophisticated way to talk about it. So I was really...
That's one of the few times on the internet that anyone's been nuanced and allowed for like sophistication. That's incredible.
And so I was impressed, and I was happy to see that. But still, there were people that were like super emotionally attached to the idea that multivitamins do work. And this study can't possibly be true, because if it is, then that means that I'm wrong about multivitamins and maybe more things. And therefore I reject it. And our buddy, Dr. Dresdale, would say that that's called a defense mechanism.
I'm sure there's lots of pathologies you can put on it, but
and yeah, so the main point of this episode is to actually build up those people, the people that are like, I can't believe this thing because I want it to be real. I could wag the finger at you, and you have to accept the data no matter what. It's brand new data, but you're right. You're right.
And you're going to double down. What happens here when we have arguments on the internet is Neal will come in with, okay, I want to help you understand this COVID thing. I want to help you understand what we're doing here, right? And so he does that, and then everybody lashes out like lunatic people from an emotional brain standpoint and don't actually logically listen to what they're saying. And it makes people angrier that you're trying to correct them, so they become more attached to their original idea. They don't move from where they were. They stay even more fiercely behind their idea because they own it. That feels like a unique idea to them, and now you're attacking it, so you're attacking them. And that's not what we want to do here. It's why we have the affirmation at the beginning. It's why this isn't a personal attack.
Yeah.
You are going to double down. You're just a human, okay? So you're going to do this. You're going to double down when Neal gives you the facts because you don't want to believe it. And so we're going to try to approach this in a different way. We're not going to yell at you. We're not going to shame you.
We're not wagging the finger.
We're not going to wag the finger. None of that.
Because I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that they're important still, even though the studies say that they don't, quote unquote, work. And so let's now talk about, what does work even mean? Okay? Because this is, back to our expectations about what supplements will do for us, back to our supplement strategy, right? This is a big thing that we're talking about. So let's I got a lot of really great examples here. This is my favorite one. So there is this very well marketed magic jellyfish supplement.
I'm already intrigued by where this is going.
That makes this really amazing claim that it helps with memory. And so think about how many people that would impact and how many people would really like that.
Every single person.
Now, despite the fact that the FDA sent them multiple warning letters about their illegal claims, and like making claims from my perspective is one of the biggest red flags that you can see with any supplement company. If they're breaking that law, just think about all the other stuff they're doing behind the scenes with the actual quality of their product, right? But they say it helps with memory. And so I push back and say, what does that even mean? Does it help with you if you have a test coming up and you're 20 years old? Can I take it then? Do I take just one pill, or do I have to take it for my whole life and then it pays off one day? Does it help you remember stuff from your childhood if you're 80? Does it help you come up with the right things to say when you're like hosting a podcast and you don't want to go off a script?
Right.
Is it only for patients that are 65 to 75? Does it help with people with pathologies? Does it help a little? Does it help a lot? How do we measure what to determine if it's a lot or a little, right? So if you think about all of these really hard questions, how are we measuring the success of this thing?
I think the way to measure it, Neal, is to take them at their face value. They said what they said. They said it's going to help with my memory. So I read that on the label. There was a nice little wave filled with berries. And so I thought, okay, that's going to help my memory. They said so. What's fascinating to me, Neal, is the FDA will send you a letter saying, hey, you can't make this claim because you actually don't do this.
Yeah.
And they get to continue to do the thing.
They get to do it. It's just like, a slap on the wrist.
Like it's literally like, so we know that this isn't true, and you know it isn't true, and we're asking you to stop saying it is true. And they're like, LOL. We're just going to keep doing it.
We've been brought up COVID a bunch here, but like COVID was really one of the few times that they went hard. They went hard in the paint on that one. Like they were shutting people down and they were like fining people. And Mercola now can't even like post his stuff publicly. He has to like put it behind a paywall.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he's a crazy person.
But people will say that's like censorship, and they'll say it's but it's physically dangerous.
Yeah.
And so when there's this level of danger happening with the FDA saying you can't say this about this thing, they still get to do it. And so that's infuriating, especially to you, I would imagine, as a guy who's legitimately in the supplement game.
Well, I mean, I'm in the supplement game, but I'm trying to do this well. I'm trying to give people the right answer
correctly.
Right?
You're trying to do it. And so you're up against this misinformation in such a way where someone comes to you and says, Neal, I don't believe
tsunami.
you. I don't believe you, Neal, because it says on this box here, I mean, I could put a guarantee on a box.
And they've sold a million things, right? So the claim is made.
Yeah.
It helps with memory. That's not scientific. That's a marketing claim. Because if you say it helps with memory, any scientist, healthcare practitioner will go like, they'll do the little rock eyebrow thing, right? And because that's not how we talk about memory. It's not your ceiling fan. You don't like have an on and off and like a dial. Like that's not how it works. But here's the thing. The claim's made. All the important questions are glossed over. We just go, oh yeah, it helps with memory. It's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave. Right. And so,
and my memory will go from a 9 to an 11 on whatever scale. I don't know what we're doing.
Right. What scale are we on?
What are we doing?
If we're going to be honest with ourselves when we're listening to this, those questions don't really matter because it's about what we want it to be, right? We're aspirational with this. And, as long as they say it does. And a lot of people, back to the FDA thing, they lean on the idea that, well, if it's illegal, they would be told that they can't do it.
That's what I would assume.
Right.
And so when you say that, like, I don't even know that that's how that works. Like when you said like, oh, they get a letter, I'm like, well, someone should stop them.
Yeah.
I work for the government. We stop people from doing stuff all the time. It's great.
But it takes quite a lot of effort.
It takes a lot of bureaucracy, though, is the thing. Yeah. And so,
Yeah. So it's very easy to make a claim, and it takes a much longer amount of time for responsible science to catch up. And that's my beef with this industry. I've spoken about charlatans before, right? There's folks out here, they're being irresponsible, they're lacking their integrity, and they make claims because it gets attention. People want to hear that there's a product that they can take for their memory. And if I say I have that, it gets lots and lots of attention. And they know darn well that it's going to take a long time for the science to catch up and them to be called out for it. And in the interim, they're just raking in all the dough. And even if the freaking science comes back and says it's wrong, they're going to then take the position the institutions aren't to be trusted. And they're going to say, no, look how many people are using it. And look at like this is Aunt Bessie, and she's 102, and she takes it and her memory. And meanwhile, she's like 40.
And she goes on Jeopardy every night, and she's winning the Grand Jeopardy prize every single night.
So it's too easy to make a claim and not substantiate it. And
Neal, this is infuriating. Like this can happen. Is this really what's happening? Legit.
That's legit.
This is frightening to me. Like I guess I just don't understand and know that this is happening, and I didn't write a script, so I don't.
It's not even touching on the supplement quality. We're still talking about just
random
the
claims,
therapeutics, and the claims and the marketing. Wow. We're not even getting to the fact that the stuff that's in your bottle could potentially be like toxic poison or drugs. Like not even talking about that. So another claim that I hear all the time, good for your heart. What does good for your heart mean?
Heart healthy. I see that on foods.
All the time.
Like Honey Nut Cheerios are heart healthy. I'm like, there's a lot of sugar in Honey Nut Cheerios. I'm not a doctor, but
does it make you fall in love? Does
it
make
I
you
guess
enjoy a sunset?
Does it help my aortic aneurysm? Ambulism?
Somnambulism?
Just ambulism?
So yeah, I mean, and that's the question that I would ask. So how is it heart healthy? Does it stop your heart muscles from growing too big or getting too small, or does it stop clots or stop heart attacks or strokes? Important stuff, right? Does it reduce your cholesterol? Who knows what that means, right? And so there's a gap clearly that you're infuriated about, that it's these broad generalizations of what something does and what it's for. And then there's the reality, right? And so if we can just, we've gone on 50 tangents, but I'm going to go on another one real quick.
Let's do it.
So we talk about supplements and what they do generally is like a force of habit for most of us, right? And so like we say heart healthy. we say for memory. And this is how we talk about supplements. I take supplements. I heard Kevin Hart getting interviewed, and he was talking about a smoothie. And I got the thing in it for digestion, and I got the thing in it for inflammation. And we just talk about it in this general thing. It's a force of habit from us to talk about it. But that's not because that's the science. That's a legal reason. So we're not allowed to say that a supplement or an ingredient is effective or safe. And we can't say that it does something. It lowers cholesterol until it's studied like a drug is. So because none of them will do that, because as soon as they do, then they become a drug and it's very expensive, and they don't want to do that. They want to live in supplement land, which is this legal, ambiguous place where it's like nebulous, right? They want to live
and no one's in charge, Neal. Who's in charge of the supplement game? Somebody needs to be in charge here.
It's this really weird space that it occupies. So then, we're outside that world and like really just out at the fingertips of the FDA. And the FDA will really only come after folks that are making horrendous claims that are super dangerous or doing something that will absolutely hurt somebody, and it's like proven, right? And like even stuff like
that's a really far way to go, though, Neal. By then, like a bunch of people are dead,
yeah,
right?
Like K2, right?
Yeah,
there's the that's an opioid, right?
Sure.
It's heroin, and like so it took them a while to get after that. But what we can do when we talk about supplements is live in this ambiguous place, this nebulous vacuum where we can make what's called structure function claims. So we can say heart health, inflammation support, immune health. And so now that's what we're programmed to believe is enough. It's like the Idiocracy example. It's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave. That's all they just keep repeating the same thing, even though it doesn't mean anything. I visited the high school the other day, Mark, that we went to high school for my kids. The triplets are in 7th grade. So I got to go through junior high, and I walked into Mr. Frank's room, one of my favorite teachers. Remember that dude?
Yes.
He passed away a few years ago, really sad. I got to take care of him as a patient. He was a healthy, awesome dude, but and he passed away suddenly. It was very sad. But anyway, he was the guy that would say, peanut butter, your turn. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Like people would say words that we just like a force of habit, like it's immune health. And then he would go, okay, peanut butter, your turn. I'm just making up random words like you are. So now it's your turn to make up another random word. And that's what I think of when people come in and they say that I want to take berberine because it's good for my heart. And okay, well, peanut butter is good for the environment. Your turn.
Peanut butter's good on a piece of toast on the side of a highway. What? What are you talking about? We're saying the wrong things. But I'm programmed to think that that's right, Neal. So as you're saying it, I'm like, heart healthy sounds amazing.
It sounds great.
Heart healthy sounds good to me.
I'll buy that.
I want my heart to be healthy. Why don't I want my heart to be healthy, Neal? Why are you being a jerk all the time?
So we have to push back. We have to kind of really push back. And like I've got this whole rap on vitamin C about like the immunity stuff, and just to kind of simplify it, because that's the one supplement that I just want to kind of like choke, like just grab its face and just pinch it a little bit.
So I saw a TikTok, and I shouldn't watch TikToks, but I saw a TikTok where, and it was a friend of mine who shared it, and I was like, "Do you think this is real?" They took an orange, and they put salt on it, and then heated it up, and then used a syringe, and then took the syringe and just squirted it into the baby's mouth, and was like, "This is nutrition for a baby," and I was like, it's an orange with salt on it.
Yeah.
This isn't a treatment for a thing.
And
this is a professional person. So this person is somebody who I know is bright. So if it's like a random, like a lunatic person, I don't pay any attention to those folks. But what I worry about is when people who are otherwise intelligent see these things and go, oh, that might be a good idea. It's that recent effect. It's that last person I talked to effect.
FOMO.
But it's worse than that, because the internet leads you to believe that this is what you should be doing for your child, which is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it's like those NyQuil chicken people, right?
I mean, the NyQuil chicken people, it's so far out that the NyQuil chicken feels like at least most people would probably see that and not believe it.
Not true.
Maybe.
Not true.
Maybe.
I swear to God, people are
Eve,
like,
are you cooking new NyQuil chicken over there? Do not
She's got NyQuil on her face.
My God, it's NyQuil everywhere.
She's been face painting for the Garlic Festival. Nice. I have, you remember the Bernie meme where Bernie was at the inauguration in his coat and he's just got his arms crossed. So during one of the first COVID clinics, somebody came in and they put foil around their head, right? I thought it was really funny. And so we took this goofy picture, me and him, but then it worked really great to Photoshop Bernie in there.
Perfect.
Right?
Yes.
And so we have a wall of excellence with our COVID stuff, right?
Sure.
All the awards and everything that we got, just to kind of brag, right? So this is what we did. It's got that great picture of me and all the volunteers, and right below it is the picture of me and Bernie Sanders,
Fantastic.
right? And probably 9 out of 10 people think that Bernie was vaccinated by me, wearing his coat.
Is that his same outfit?
while I'm stabbing him.
You have a picture of it, so it absolutely happened. And so people want to believe these things. And so we want to be healthy. That aspiration is a good aspiration. And so we're not crapping on the aspiration here. People are taking advantage of your aspirations to be healthy and selling you a bill of goods for things that don't do what they say.
Right.
And that's the main point here, which is why I don't need a script. I can take the information with my memory that I have from my multivitamins and my micronutrients. I can use my brain to concoct the clearest examples of how this works and to synthesize Neal's information that's very long and turn it into something that's helpful for folks. That's why I'm here. And so we really are worried about this, though. Like I'm more worried now than when we started.
Yeah.
I'm much more worried now.
And so we're getting people to a place to understand about multivitamins and working and putting those two pieces together. And you can hear all of the behavioral stuff that comes up. That's purely a marketing force because there's a lot of money to be made. And I just want to touch on the vitamin C thing because we are getting close to the end here. The vitamin C and immunity thing. We have a vitamin C worship in this country. We're going to have a whole conversation about that. I did like multiple episodes debunking vitamin C on the Big Mouth Pharmacist, but there's this broad generalization that you take vitamin C to stop you from getting sick. And like so much so that people were gobbling it down during the pandemic thinking it was going to help, right? And there's anecdotes. People will say, I haven't been sick in years. I've taken vitamin C. I haven't been sick in years. And I, of course, jokingly say, like, you don't have kids my age, right? Because if you have school-age children, you're going to get sick. You're going to every week constantly.
The diseases that come into your house from the elementary school, you might as well forget about it. You're gonna be dead in a week.
Little vectors of spread.
That's awful.
Right? Yeah,
disgusting.
So vitamin C is important to immune health, and this is what happens. They take a grain of truth, and then they just kind of extrapolate and stretch it and make you believe it. So you can say a bunch of smart things, make an outrageous claim, and kind of bury it in there, and then people believe it. It's actually another a little tangent. Mushrooms. So the mushroom business, there's Host Defense. That dude is notorious for doing that. Like he'll take a lot of truthful things about mushrooms and then he'll like insert a little thing about his product, which isn't really a mushroom. And then everybody thinks it's valid because it's like covered, it's like a smoke screen basically. And that's essentially what happens is that, vitamin C is important for immune cells. It's like super important. Like as soon as you get sick, your immune cells start chewing up vitamin C and it's found in high concentration in immune activity. It's a part of the whole system, but it doesn't mean that taking extra is going to like give you a force field, right? It's not like a vaccine substitute,
people want a force field, and I don't know if you've watched this guy Neal. We're all over the place today, but the Liver King. I don't know if you saw his interview with Barstool Sports. It was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. So this guy, he eats like he thinks he's an ancestor, and he eats like the ancestors, and so he's jacked, and he eats these like actual liver and testicles and he eats all these things and he talks about how eating testicles from animals gives
like dead animals, I hope.
Right? Who knows? And there was like a chance there was some cannibalism going on. It was very confusing, but it was one of the most fascinating because they were bombing on him. Like the guy who's interviewing him is doing it in the Sunday conversation style, which is meant to be mockumentary.
Yeah.
And he's totally just crapping on this guy. And he's like serious as can be, like about how he doesn't need to wipe his butt because it comes out clean and because he doesn't use useless fiber. And I'm like, useless fiber? Like your body could use, like I need fiber. And so these are the people making these claims, right? And so it seems silly enough because the guy's an idiot. And you see him, he's like wearing like the shaman outfit that the guy stormed the Capitol in. Like he looks like a maniac, right? But he's huge and he's jacked. And so somebody could see him and go, that jacked guy is saying all I got to do is eat bull testicles and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And like people might actually think that that's a thing.
Right. And so you're actually bringing up something really interesting because that's the extreme example of a clearly like cartoonish person that people do believe because it becomes viral. And you touched on it just a little bit. The doctor thing. There's so many medical professionals that decide that they'd rather have the attention, which is the currency in the connection economy that we live in today, is attention and trust. That's more valuable than money at this point, right? Because it leads to lots of money. And so you have medical professionals that will forsake their education, forsake their training to
and their code of ethics, right? I mean,
their code of ethics
actually like that exists,
100%,
right?
and like to sell stuff to people, to get people to look at them, right? And so like a lot of this cold vitamin C stuff is parroted by medical professionals that, like, again, just ask 2 questions deep. That's all I suggest for people. When I teach people about supplement quality, I'm not saying that you need to go to the factory to verify that they're doing their SOPs correctly. I just ask 2 questions back. Like, okay, so what about this thing and what about this thing, right? And so, if you're a medical professional, you're supposed to ask these questions back. That's what we're literally 6 years of pharmacy school. That's what they teach us to do, is how to sort through Stein studies. Like, that's all we do. And so, we're taught to pick out the bias and all the misinformation, and people actively forsake that. We saw it a lot during COVID because we put our ideological truth before our objective truth, right? And that's a real problem, right? And that's kind of what I'm trying to say, waving the flag about here. When it comes to multivitamins, when it comes to vitamin C, when it comes to all of these outrageous claims about this works, we have to really kind of go one level deeper, okay? And with colds, just to wrap up that thought, in vitamin C, how do you stop a cold, right? So, or like, how do we know it works? So you can stop it, you can not get sick. That's that force field. I take vitamin C, and normally I get 12 colds a year. I get 6 when I take vitamin C. So if we had that data, that would be great data. That data doesn't exist, okay? The other way is, like, if you do get sick, it's not as intense, right? Or if you do get sick, it's shorter, right? Those are 3 ways that you can say that, yes, vitamin C helps out. And guess what? It doesn't do that at all. It does do it in a very, very tiny portion of the population. I call them overachievers, the people that are like endurance athletes that are like out running in the winter, or people that are like outdoors workers. Because of their exposure, the vitamin C actually does help those people get less sick or less intensely sick, which is great. And so that's an example of good data and good information of when you could use something and this actually works. But for the rest of us, it doesn't do that.
If you're sitting at a desk and you're chowing down vitamin C to be healthy, when someone's coughing next to you and you don't look at your diet at all, and you don't exercise, and you're mostly just sitting in a chair all day, vitamin C is not going to be the thing, is what you're saying, Neal.
Totally. And the next episode, we're going to talk about how these things have risks, the idea of multiple vitamins. And vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, so I can just take it because if I get too much, I pee it out. But the truth is that there's a time delay between when you take it and when you pee it out. And what is it doing in your body during that time? And if it's a constant...
It's making a force field is what it's doing.
it's knitting a scarf so you don't get sick in the winter.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about how multivitamins don't work. All right, let's take this bad boy home.
Bring it home.
So taking multivitamins won't make you healthier. And the question then becomes, ask that question back, what do you mean by healthier? Right? Do we have less disease? Do we live longer? Those are the 2 major markers for if it actually makes you healthier. You can say you feel better. That's very subjective, right? And like, you could have won the lotto. You could have just had stuff go your way, right? Or you could have been taking all your multivitamins and feel like crap because stuff isn't going right for you. Does that mean the multivitamin made you sicker? It doesn't, right?
And I say I feel better when I take my multivitamins, but I also eat the right way most of the time. I mean, I didn't this weekend, but most of the time I do. And so that probably is a contributing factor to how I feel in ways beyond the actual multivitamin. And I said it earlier in this thing. I said, I feel better when I take my multivitamin, right? I use that same language.
And there's no doubt that, feel better as a measure and be healthier are 2 separate things, because you could feel better if you're malnourished and you get nourished, or you could feel better if you take a stimulant. If you take a lot of something,
drink a lot of coffee, you're going to feel great.
You're going to feel great. Or the multivitamin equivalent, because sometimes, excess B12 might give people some energy, and that's a side effect, right? So there's all of those kinds of things to think about and consider. So, multivitamins don't decrease the risk of any major cause of death. And these are the things that we think about: cancer, heart disease, even COVID, right? Those are the 3 leading causes of death in America right now. And so it doesn't decrease that risk. Interesting enough, though, we hear it all the time that people who take multivitamins are healthier. Right. So let's talk about that. Right. It's not that it's causal, that it's because they take multivitamins, they're healthier. It's because the people who tend to take multivitamins also tend to be healthier people, right? Because of the socioeconomic stuff, right? Yep. If you can afford a multivitamin, you could probably afford a lot of other stuff. And if you're health conscious, you don't probably have to worry about all the things that make people unhealthy, right? You're
already, like I said, you're already doing the other things. You're
good,
doing what
right?
I'm doing, which is you're eating the healthy foods on top of the fact that you're eating multivitamins.
Right.
And you wouldn't just go grab multivitamins if all you're doing is eating fast food, because that honestly isn't worth it. And you know that, right? Like you would know if you're chowing down on fast food and that's all you eat. You're not going to GNC to get a multivitamin. You're just not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have the ability to be healthier, period. And you're also choosing multivitamins. So they're running alongside. One of my favorite charts that I bring up, I should just post this in the store, because it's murder rate and Internet Explorer use. And it's that chart where it's like the murder rate goes up when Internet Explorer use goes up.
That makes sense.
And it's like
causal.
Clearly a causal relationship,
one-to-one.
like, Internet Explorer. So
I've seen that same bell curve with shark attacks and ice cream consumption. It's the same bell curve. So now, do the sharks attack because you ate ice cream?
Yeah.
Hard to know.
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it helps with heart health. Hard to know.
Shark attack time. So these things, though, are still vital. Let's go back to the beginning. The idea here is that we need these micronutrients. Multivitamins are products that have vitamins and minerals in them, which are essential, meaning we don't make them. We need to get them from our diet. There's about 14-ish vitamins, 8-ish minerals, and 9 trace elements. So it's about 31-ish things. And again, I say ish because there are lots of like vitamins, is what they're referred to as, like, or other forms of the vitamins that could be considered a vitamin on their own or has a specific health effect. But we don't say vitamin D1 and D2 and D3. We just say vitamin D. Right? We don't say K1 and K2 and K3. We say vitamin K. So like that's where the ish comes from. But again, as I said at the beginning, there's about 10,000 phytochemicals that have been identified. So when you eat an orange, there's like 10,000 things in there. So you're not, we're not talking about anything except for a drop in the bucket. It's very important to get these specific things. These are essential, and they definitely are missing from most people's diets, right? So what are we doing when we take a multivitamin then at best? And at best, all you're doing is ensuring minimum competency. You're saying that if out of those 10,000 things and all of the other things that we talk about, fluid and proteins and fiber and calories and all of that stuff that has more to do with nutrition and your timing and all of that stuff, you're saying that these 30 to 40 chemicals, I got that. Those are there, and that's all we're saying with a multivitamin, minimum competency. So you're not going to be malnourished. Period. You're not going to have what's called a disease of deficiency. You're not going to have scurvy, right? You're not going to have rickets.
So all I'm doing is preventing myself from being a 17th century pirate. Like, is that like a scurvy is the thing I'm avoiding? That's it.
That's all you can do.
Oh man.
And it brings up the point of supplements is that, are we taking the supplement because more will make us healthier, and we talked about what that means, or are we taking it to make sure that we're not unhealthy? And a lot of the times it's to make sure that we're not unhealthy, right? And so, the idea, like vitamin K is a big one that comes up a lot right now. Mm-hmm. Women believe that taking vitamin K will, help the absorption of vitamin D. Total nonsense. You can put vitamin D on your skin and it'll absorb. But they think that it's going to make your bones healthier, and that's not true. It's a piece of information that vitamin K is involved in hardening of the arteries, and it's involved in bone strength, right? That's a true thing. And then extrapolating and saying, well, if you're deficient in vitamin K, you'll have those diseases. But if you take extra vitamin K, you're going to prevent those diseases. And those are two very different things. And when we talk about works, that's what we have to think about, right? What is it actually doing?
That's a good place to pause on that, because that's a big piece. So this idea that I'm chasing after this like optimal health, which is what we're kind of talking about, that aspiration. I want to be as healthy as possible, but all I'm really doing is meeting a minimum level, and even then, the benefits are so low if I'm not doing the lifestyle pieces that we've been continually hammering here. We are talking very clearly about things you have control over that you could focus on that are going to give you those aspirational results without putting your hopes and dreams behind a vitamin C.
Absolutely. The Vital 5 is where I start people's conversations because of how we're trained. The marketing over 80 plus years around multivitamins and all these other supplements, and the booming industry has programmed us to think about supplements as, markers of health and wellness. And so I start out the conversation there and I always backtrack. It's sabotage. I'm intentionally saying Vital 5 so that way I can talk about essential nutrients and then backtrack people into nutrition and then the 5 lifestyle domains and how they're interconnected and interdependent.
Sneaky Dr. Neal. Sneaky
very, very
Dr.
sneaky.
Neal.
And so, taking a multivitamin isn't going to give you a leg up. It's just going to prevent you from having a setback due to missing one of those 31 chemicals. And anything that claims to be more than that is a dirty, stinking liar, and it's misrepresenting what it is.
And I thought this whole time I was building a force field. I eat these 4 vitamins every day, and now I'm just depressed. I'm sad. I feel like I ate 50 cannolis. Like, what a mess.
The COVID is just on the tip of my tongue today. the meme about, my Flintstones vitamins ready to go to work to fight off COVID, right?
Yeah.
Remember that one?
That's why I got it sitting there. It's the whole point.
Right. Like, it's just crazy what we think that these things can be for us, right? So the question then becomes, should I take a multivitamin then, right? We talked about everything here. So our perceptions, the cultural relationship, how these things aren't really going to make you healthier. But should I take one? And just like everything else, I want to show you the question behind the question. So in the case of the multivitamins, what is the multivitamin that you're buying? What's inside of it? And what can it actually do for me? But most importantly, how does it fit into my supplement strategy? How is it part of my true holistic care plan? It's not about the supplement and that being your direct path to wellness. It's about how the supplement fits in to true holistic care, the wellness pyramid, right? So micronutrients are essential. They are a huge part of nutrition. How do you make your daughter healthier? Do you give her a multivitamin? Well, if you want to make sure she's minimally competent on those 30-ish things, then yeah, that's a super smart idea. But could you get her to take a smoothie once a day, once every other day?
That's my dream. I kind of force the issue. I have like Pediasures and they're high protein. Mm-hmm. And so I make her have one of those for breakfast because I know that at least she's going to have the protein from the start of the day. I'm like when I say I'm protein heavy, man, I preach protein because for me, physically, I know that my body definitely does better when I have the protein I need. There's science behind it, but I know physically that I need that protein. I need the amino acids. We talked about it here, the importance of protein, but I know that if I leave her to her own devices, she's just going to eat chocolate chip muffins all day long. And I'm not against chocolate chip muffins, but if she has a chocolate chip muffin alongside a Pediasure, now I know it's manufactured food. I know it's made in a lab. I know all that.
We're going to talk about that on the next episode.
But it gives me that idea that at least she's getting some protein, and I force her to get protein from foods. Mm-hmm. So I make sure she has chicken. I make sure she has meats. I make sure she has all of these other pieces available to her. That's not appealing to her. Yeah. And so I hope that putting the Band-Aid on the issue with the multivitamin is getting her a force field, and I now know that there is no force field.
No, it's minimum competency. She won't be malnourished, so you won't.
Which is a goal for me, honestly. Yeah, it is a goal. Like legitimately, I think she eats such garbage that I'm happy if she's got the minimum quals
right.
met.
She doesn't have rickets, and you're not going to get in trouble. So that's great.
That's good.
So I mean, what I say to folks, especially anybody that wants that insurance policy, there's greater insurance policies. Blueberries, strawberries, a little bit of Greek yogurt in a smoothie. Even if you had half of a serving of that, that's more nutrition than you would be getting from your multivitamin. You'd be getting lots of micronutrients, and you get micronutrients from a varied nutrient-dense diet. That's it. That's how you get it, and no other way. And so you can take the pill, but the pill is going to be just concentrated, isolated nutrition around 30 to 40 things, right? And so
once again, folks, we're back to you got to eat right, correctly for your body, the right nutrition for your body that you would have discussed with a person who understands nutrition, not the liver king who's pooping out these bull testicles, somebody who actually understands nutrition.
Yeah. And so if you're taking your multivitamin because it's going to make you healthier, sorry, Charlie, you're not going to get that benefit. But it's okay. We are okay with you wanting to take a multivitamin. We're not attacking your approach or what it does for you or any of those things. I'm okay with it. If it's something that you want to do, as long as you're doing it with all of the information. We don't have all of the information, and that's what we're trying to do is give you the truth here. And so so we have this cultural momentum, right? We don't want that to force your hand. We don't want the business incentives to force your hand here. If another person that is pro-supplement claims that I'm a shill, and meanwhile we'll gobble down a billion supplements from, Dr. Bob online, it's just going to drive me crazy. I'm going to lose all the hair that I grew back.
Yeah.
These things are not space food, but it doesn't mean that they're not needed, right? And so there are plenty of examples, like Mark, of people that need multivitamins, right? But for most of us, it's not going to do it.
But we love the idea, and you've said this before in your supplement strategy episode, so go back and watch the supplement strategy episode. Watch all our episodes. Give us 5 stars. We've earned it. But you mentioned this idea that when we have this this nutrition plan that doesn't have actual food in it, we're not going to get the nutrition that we need throughout the day. And that piece we keep coming back to for a reason. It's not an accident. We need you to eat better. And so if we haven't made that point, all the rest of the stuff that you're going to try to do around it is marketing.
Right.
None of it's actually based in science.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to give you the best information possible so that you can make informed decisions. Not, I did it because blank. I did it because, some guy said it on the internet. We want this to be an informed decision. And I feel so much smarter about the nutrition piece because I've had to learn it, but also I'm passionate about getting people to know what their body needs. And Neal's the same way. We're trying to get you away from this panacea of I'm going to take a thing and I'm going to buy a thing that's going to meet my needs and get me through this. We have to think differently.
There's a lot of lessons here, Mark. We've talked about how supplements, we're attached to them and what they are for us and how they're misrepresented. And, I think it's okay if a supplement doesn't live up to the hype, because it can still serve a purpose. People still need them. And so we just really built upon this conversation that we've had about expectations. What does it mean when we say a supplement works? And why does it matter for us to ask more questions to make sure that that's not just a BS claim that's just kind of generic, right? And we talked about why micronutrients are still vital and how a multivitamin, if not misrepresented, can actually be pretty helpful to you. So,
And because you've said this in the supplement episode, you're an adult. So maybe you're not, maybe you're a kid, but if you're listening and you're an adult, you can make decisions about your care for yourself. And so go ahead. Yeah. Like if you want to take a multivitamin, but just know you're not building a force field, which is what I thought before now.
Right. I just want you to have that information. Just know that the claims are not substantiated. I would hope that they would be. We did the study. I wasn't attached to the result. And there it is. And there's more and more studies that show that it isn't really beneficial. No big whoop. You can still use them. The Vital 5 talk about the nutrients that are essential. And if you need those micronutrients from a pill just to make sure you're getting that minimum competency, I'm here for you, man. But we're going to continue our multivitamin conversation in a future episode. And we're going to talk about like all sorts of stuff, especially when we get to the whole food conundrum, like how all of that stuff is like super fraudulent and you're not even getting close to a food. I'm going to bring out a slide ruler just to show you the math associated with that. So
math and science. This is, people are going to be so excited. We're like so Bill Nye, but like less fun.
Yeah. Like the idea of the collisions that we're going to cause from people falling asleep. To listen
we
to
don't have Dresdale here,
nonsense.
So it's a little bit more hyped than it was for Dresdale. But this is fascinating stuff, Neal. And I don't have any understanding of this stuff because it's just not my world. And so to hear you kind of lay it out the way that you have so that folks can really understand this stuff, folks that I care about who are going to listen to this thing, Neal is here to help. I'm here to help cut through the noise and the chaos. That's what we're here to do. We're raging against that machine that's feeding you deliberate misinformation. And so the last thing we're going to do is replicate that here. What we're going to do is dismantle that and have the right conversations about health.
That does it for this week's podcast. Woo!
Nailed it.
Just take a few minutes here.
You know what we should do is we should tap on the top of this podcast and say, do you have any idea how many tangents this podcast can hold? Because, man, it can hold so many tangents.
Take a few minutes to give us that 5-star review and share the podcast to your social feeds. Visit wellnessupsidedown.com for all things podcast. Remember, being our healthiest starts with being honest about ourselves and the health and wellness industry. Then blaze a new path, marching forward one step at a time. I'm Dr. Neal Smoller and Mark DeCicco, and we got your back. Thanks for joining us.